Yo, welcome back to Curiosity Theory. It is your co-host, Dr. Dakotah Tyler, aka Dr. Star Kid, astrophysicist, science communicator, comedian at times, some say, um, author, uh, and excellent co-host.
Yeah, Justin Shaifer here, also known as Mr. Fascinate, voice actor, STEM media producer, a guy with deep voice,
Yeah,
science
fake.
communicator as well. And on this episode, we have an extra special guest, Suh. She's going to be talking to us a lot about her research on stem cells. We're going to be talking about the implications of replacing different parts of our bodies and the open sourcing of IP in the science world, and many, many more nerdy, fascinating topics. I have the pleasure of introducing to you all the one and only, the legendary Suh.
Thank you. Hi, guys. Yep, that's me. My name is Suh. I did my Ph.D. in stem cells. Now I'm a postdoc in immune engineering. Lots of other stuff like poet, martial artist, and rapper. I used to do battle rap and freestyle rap. And I'm just happy to be here. Yeah.
Appreciate you, Suh. Let's get right into it.
Let's do it. Do they fall off a? I ain't never seen them fall off a
goat
cliff.
fainting and falling off the side of a cliff.
You're looking at me like I'm crazy. You said that goats faint.
They do, but why?
Look it up right now.
Well, I've never fainted, and I'm definitely a goat. So
I'm definitely a goat.
let me fix one more.
That was actually good. That was nice.
Fainting, falling off cliff.
Well, it's like they don't faint. Like they faint when they get scared, right? I don't think they
Oh
fall
no,
off.
they fall off cliffs. Well, that one looked like it jumped. But
Well,
like
goats also are dumb sometimes, you know.
I guess.
No,
I guess
like,
it's comparative.
think about the volume of a goat's brain. It's got to be small compared to like a modern human. But actually, I don't know if brain size. tells
brain
you
size
much.
doesn't directly correlate with intelligence.
Really, I thought it
elephants have
was.
bigger
Is
brains.
that like a myth?
What? Yeah, it's not about the size. Yeah, that's a
Yeah,
myth.
yeah.
I thought it was about the brain size to body size ratio. It's not about that
Oh,
either.
That could be interesting.
Have you
They
seen
got-
that orange? Like people say that orange cats are mean.
like Garfield. It's a stereotype.
Garfield's not mean. He's just sort of over it.
You don't think Garfield's mean?
I mean, he's like grumpy,
He is very grumpy.
but I don't know if
Right,
that
he's
makes
not-
him malevolent.
mean-hearted.
Like,
Yeah, you're right.
it depends on your definition of mean. Like, is a person mean if they're always grumpy? Because if so, then yeah, he's mean. But if like a person has to have malintent to be mean, I don't think he's like evil.
Yeah. And you almost wonder, you know, he's basically on a strictly lasagna diet. And
Yes.
that can't be
good
for like his mental health. He's also like,
but he loves it. So it's good for his mental health. It's probably not very good for his physical health. Like, can a real cat eat lasagna? Like, would they be okay?
I don't know. I think that there's way too many carbs in something like that. They pretty much eat meat, right? Like they're like strict carnivores, not even omnivores.
You don't see a cat eating like grass.
Well, you don't see a lot of animals eating grass. Dogs don't eat grass. We don't eat grass.
Salads are grass, kind of.
You're right. I've never seen a cat eat any sort of vegetable.
I don't think they care
carnivores.
about anything but meat.
Yeah, cats are carnivores.
Yeah.
They're pretty predatory.
Yeah,
They're
but
predators.
Okay. Well, all right. So what's up? Explain Garfield then. What's your theory since you know everything?
Well,
since you know every
Garfield
goddamn
is a
thing,
nihilistic individual, but he's had a
Oh,
long
you
day.
think he's nihilistic?
I think that they film Garfield at the end of the day every time. And
I think Garfield is a critique of capitalism.
That's
fire.
Living under the thumb of the white man to get a little bit of lasagna at the end of the day.
That's why he hates Mondays. But does he have a job though?
Garfield is definitely unemployed.
Garfield is definitely.
That's like those
why
people
does
you
he
know
hate
who are
Mondays?
unemployed and then they celebrate that it's Friday. It's like, what are you celebrating?
Yeah.
Yeah. I've been trying to get Justin canceled since we started this thing. So
yeah, he's been successful actually. Yeah, I got canceled a couple
For
times.
what?
I think most people just think that I'm a liar now. Like I think he's painted this narrative.
I have sort of
Okay, but liar is different than canceled, though.
Well, I think he's shamed me in the court of public opinion. Like, there's this movie called Ad Astra. It's a sci-fi movie from a while back. I actually watched it. But I just want to start off with that premise. And Dakotah cuts this video together that he posts on social media that just makes it look like I was making up that I knew what he was talking about, but it was only because of the way that it was edited. It had nothing to do with whether or not I actually saw the video, which I did.
Yeah, so I do take creative control over the short form videos, and I do appreciate
like a dictator.
I do appreciate crafting a compelling narrative, but I think that all I really do is sort of exaggerate what's already there. Like what's his name? Vincent Van Gogh.
Yeah.
He's like, he takes reality and he blends it a little bit. He makes it a little bit more abstract, but you're just building on what already exists.
Oh, yeah. No. You had me. You lost me, but then now I see.
Yeah.
Dakotah has a way of doing that. I think a lot of sociopaths are really good at
sociopaths.
Yeah, just engineering. It's social engineering,
I don't know that a sociopath though would admit it.
Yeah,
that's the thing. He's not really admitting to guilt. He's not really taking full accountability for what he did,
it's like, look, I'm just a man. I'm just a man just like you.
You're justifying it. I think that's more of a psychopath than a sociopath.
Well said. Well said.
Dude, I feel emotions all the time.
That's the distinction, right? I'm not a psychiatrist. I have no idea. Sociopaths, they don't feel empathy. Is that the?
How do you confirm that? Like, how do you confirm a person's like personal conscious experience? Like, how can I say
A, subjective, and B, almost actually, I would venture to say completely impossible to measure.
Yeah, like you subjectively don't have empathy. You don't feel any empathy. It's like maybe my response to someone's emotions isn't as emotive. And that doesn't mean that I'm not empathizing with what's happening. It just means that I don't have the same response to what's internally happening.
I think a lot of psychiatry too, they use surveys and like you're asking someone, they're answering you're assuming a lot of things. You're assuming that they're willfully telling you the truth. You're assuming that their truth aligns with the universal ground truth of reality. You're assuming that they are sort of like voluntarily engaging in good faith. You're assuming a lot of stuff. So then I guess you could do like EEGs or like brain scans, but I don't know that. Did you know polygraph tests are like BS? I learned that recently. They're like not real.
Yeah, they're but I think they put a lot of pressure on people to feel like they need to tell the truth. We were actually just having a great conversation with a neuroscientist not too long ago who was talking about pain and the like how the experience of pain is so subjective and predicated on other people's self-reporting of the pain, and that this experience, like one of the takeaways from it was that sometimes people may have this experience of pain and people are like, no, it's all in your head. Like we can't find any evidence that you're actually experiencing this pain. That doesn't make it not real, right? Like we can delude ourselves into both feeling less pain and feeling more pain as a result of the neurotransmitters that, might be activated by us having either a dopamine response or a cortisol response to stress, or all these things like have an effect on our personal subjective experience of pain. It's fascinating.
It's super interesting.
As a scientist, you could argue that asking someone about their level of pain relative to anything else, like on a scale at like when they ask you in like the hospital, is meaningless because they don't have a control. Like maybe they think that in their head, their control is 0 day to day, like when they're not experiencing pain, but like compared to another person. And I think the subjectivity of that leads to some really evil things. I think like, especially you see a lot of Black women talking about like how Black like birthing, like labor and delivery, like OB-GYN, like Black women in general, but especially Black women tend to experience hesitancy of doctors to assist with pain meds and really a refusal just to believe that they're experiencing pain at all.
Yeah. Yeah, and then the postpartum, what is it? The postpartum mortality rate in Black women is higher on average, right?
Is
Like
it?
after they give
Yeah.
birth.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know that's like one of the things that's really under researched, but I think there's emerging research coming out about that now.
Yeah,
So
I think people are starting to talk about it.
yeah, so this is fascinating stuff. I really appreciate your fluency on all these kind of different topics. I'm really curious about the nature of your personal research, though. So I know we kind of had a chat about it beforehand, right? You're working with heart stem cells. Is that correct?
Yes. So now I'm working in more of the immune space, which I can talk
Okay.
about too. But my PhD was this recently discovered, if you consider 2007 recent, I don't know if that's recent anymore, but scientists discovered it was Yamanaka and Gordon. They won the Nobel Prize for it several years later, but they
Period.
discovered that they could take cells, any cells, like blood, urine, cheek swab, any cells in the body, and manipulate them into thinking that they were in what they call a pluripotent state. So pluripotency is just a word that means the ability to differentiate into any cell in the body. So that's what embryonic stem cells have, pluripotency. But these, and what they call induced pluripotent stem cells, because they were making them pluripotent, they don't have to come from embryos. They could come from you or me right now. Like I could take a cheek swab from you and make these iPSCs, induced pluripotent stem cells, from you right now. And so that was just huge for the world of biomedical research, because so much of what we want to do in terms of repairing and even replacing tissue is limited by our ability to have cell sources that are not going to trigger an immune response. And so the thing about these iPSCs is if you take them from the same person, turn them into a different cell type, they're still genetically a perfect match, because they're still genetically that person's own cells. So this was really exciting. It was like, it led to an explosion of research. And so then eventually we see that we can get cardiomyocytes, the type of cell in the heart that beats, from these iPSCs. And so years later, when I start my PhD, the real issue is, because you're sort of tricking them into going back into this almost embryonic state, they don't behave like adult heart cells. There's a certain amount of force necessary to pump blood through the body. But more importantly, cardiomyocytes have to pass an electrical signal to each other in order to...
What's a cardiomyocyte? I don't know.
So that's the type of cell in the heart that causes it to beat. So like the actual contracting cells, because there's other types of cells in the heart that are structural or supportive, or
so the accumulation of the aggregate of all the cardiomyocytes are what causes, when you watch a beating heart, it's what's causing it to pump.
Exactly.
Like all the cells. So does this mean that trillions and trillions of these cells are like synced up to contract at the same time?
And so the issue with these new ones we get, they sync up through an electrical signal, and that creates what's called a synctition. And if they're not beating in a synctition, that's like what arrhythmia is.
Your cells are like
and also, if
one another.
some of them are beating somewhere that they shouldn't be beating, that's what an ectopic heartbeat is. You're dead. And then also, if some of them, so you have pacemakers, which set the pace of the beating, and then you have cells that follow the pace to beat as a synctition. If the wrong one is setting the pace, or the wrong group of cells are setting the pace, or the pace is being set wrong, too fast, too slow, those are arrhythmias. So the stem cell derived cardiomyocytes we get, they don't beat correctly. And so the whole crux of my PhD dissertation was, can we put them on a highly conductive surface? I sort of nano engineered this, like carbon nanotubes is what it's called, but basically they're carbon sheets rolled really tiny. So that makes it highly conductive. And so if we put them on this, and there was some other stuff involved with the material development, but for simplicity's sake, let's just say that they're sheets of carbon. If we put them on this and then shock them with electrical stimulation, will that make them beat more like that syncytium. And so the idea is that you're giving them training wheels because they have the intrinsic ability to pass this electrical signal, but they maybe need assistance, something that's highly conductive to conduct along. And then you're shocking them to try to like almost train them, like this is the rhythm, this is the magnitude, this is the frequency, this is what you need to be responding to. And so ultimately, like I did get an increase in a lot of the genes associated with the proteins that have to do with contracting, B, the proteins that have to do with passing the signal to each other, and C, this thing called cross-big cycling. There's this protein called troponin, and it has these 3 subunits, blah, 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 blah. But what it really does is it couples the flux and really the absence or presence of calcium with the absence and presence of contraction. And so all these things sort of increased, and that was sort of like what my dissertation was.
What kind of scientist are you? Like, what's your field called?
Kind of a lot. Like I call myself a biomedical engineer because that's like sort of the one consistent thread through my career. My bachelor's was in biomedical engineering. My master's was in textile engineering, and actually I did hernia mesh. Then my PhD was actually in fiber and polymer science, which I never say that because people don't typically know what it is. But that was this IPSC stuff. And then now I'm back in bioengineering for my postdoc.
Interesting. So the implications of your research could save lives in the future, right? It's like you can engineer stem cells, get them rhythmically beating, and then replace them with potentially like dead or weakened heart cells to, right?
Yes, that's why heart attacks are so bad. Not just because they are bad when they happen, but because you lose billions of beating cardiomyocytes during a heart attack. They die. And they're replaced by stiff, what we call fibrotic tissue, which not only have you lost the ability to beat, but you've also stiffened. So the ones that are left are like in this very harsh environment where they almost can't beat. That's why people that have heart attacks are almost always going to have another heart attack. So the pipe dream of the field, though this is probably like 100 years off, but like if you suspend disbelief for me and pretend we're like a couple 100 years in the future, the idea is you come into the hospital, you've had a heart attack. I take a cheek swab or even a blood draw or a urine sample from you. I go in the lab, I make iPSCs from that. I make iPSC cardiomyocytes from that. Then I have to make other types of cells in the heart to make it really a whole heart, because those are not the only type of cells in the heart. It's a very complex organism. But we're 100 years in the future, suspending disbelief. So then I build you a heart and I put it in you, and you have a brand new heart that's genetically your own. That's like the idea way down the line. So we're starting to get there. The intermediary thing that's happening now is they're making patches, and then they're putting the patches on the heart, and it is regenerating a lot of that heart function. They've started to do this in non-human primates, and it's been proven in mice fairly thoroughly. The issue with the whole heart thing is you have the sheer number of cells. How do you vascularize it, like make blood flow through it? How do you perfuse it, make the blood actually circulate? How do you make that many different types of cells? How do you put them together architecturally? How do you train it to respond to mechanical cues and the brain and innervation in vitro, which is what we call when it's not in a body? And most importantly of all, since these iPSCs can become anything, if you put them in the body and they're not fully differentiated and they're still iPSCs, they're going to grow unregulated and just divide, because that's what stem cells do. And then that's a tumor. So like there's a lot of roadblocks, but then there's, I think, a lot of optimism in the field that one day it could be possible.
So what I appreciate about your framing of this is that it sounds like the future of health is a series of microengineering challenges.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, yes.
Which is a fascinating framework for looking at aging in general or health in general, right? It kind of begs the question to me of, if we can replace, in the future, right, in this far out future, replace dying or unhealthy heart cells with basically fresh stem cells, could we almost eliminate aging by the same methodology by doing this to many of the rest of the organs that we have across our body?
Yeah, and if you really want to push the issue, like the ship of Theseus.
I'm
not familiar.
Is that from the Odyssey? From Odysseus?
Kind of. I don't remember where. I think it was a Homer play that it came from, but it's also like a thought experiment. So the thought experiment is this, and I want to hear you guys' response to this question. You have a boat, and oh shit, that's a bad example for me. I don't know anything about boats. Pretend that I'm saying real parts of boats. Okay, you have a boat. It's a boat, like your boat. You know this boat, you use this boat all the time, it's your boat. You replace, I'm going to make it a car so I can name the parts because I don't know anything about boats. Okay, so this is your car. You replace all the tires because you need tires. Great. Then you replace the transmission. Great. Then you repaint it. Okay. Bumper falls off, you replace the bumper. At what point is it no longer the same car if you replace every single part of that car? Is it the same car?
Right. Yeah. I mean, I guess are two identical cars that come off the lot from like a Honda plant, are they the same car? Like two Honda Accords that are made back to back, are those the same car or are they different cars?
I think it's an
opening. You, I don't know.
Yeah,
it's like a philosophy. The point is that it's like, like there's no.
So what comes to mind is this other futuristic sci-fi experiment where I think it was a sci-fi book where there was a teleportation device where basically it would transmit all of your cells into another location, and then it would destroy the original cells, and so that's how you would teleport.
You talking about Star Trek?
Maybe, yeah. I think that was Star Trek.
It's like that sort of thing.
Yeah, it's like a Star Trek type device, right? Teleportation device.
When you get put back together, are
you also see the Prestige?
Wait, so no, I haven't seen that. What were you saying, sir?
I was saying, so yeah, the question is, when you get put back together, are you or are you dead? And now
I say you are definitively not you, because in the sci-fi, that the horror scenario was that the copy of you that was transmitted is over there, and something went wrong and they didn't destroy the original cells, and so now there's another version. The original version of you still is alive, but like you're not legally supposed to be.
Have you seen Mickey 17?
Yeah, that's what they do in.
That's
not what they do in that, but that's like a similar thing.
Yeah. I mean, so we talked about this before too on the pod. So it's like the idea of uploading your consciousness to the cloud, right? Means that you're copying, like it's a data copying, right? The substrate of your neurological data would be on a computerized or like a mechanized substrate. Your personal experience as an individual would be that of death. If they upload you to the cloud and you die, or like your body is no longer here, you would physically experience death. There would be a copy of you with all of your memories that it believes it's you and has all the same experiences that would carry on your interests on your behalf, but it would not be you. So I think, like, to kind of answer your question, I think it's it's kind of challenging, because I think, it's like, at what point does that occur when you're like slowly but surely swapping out parts of you?
Well, you think it's you.
You would always think it was you, but like at what point does it become not? Even like when it comes to like cellular birth and death, right? Like our bodies,
all your cells are different by this time,
except for, I believe, your brain cells, right? Like I think those aren't just born and die.
I mean, they can be. I don't want to speak on the brain. That's not my area of expertise.
A lot of Justin's brain cells have died, by the way. So we're sure that
you can speak for yourself.
You can quote me on that.
I think, if anything, I have more than I've ever had. But no, like, so, but I think an important point there is it these cells, or is it your DNA, which is in all of your cells and in all of your new cells, which is you? And that's why I also, like, we've gotten so tangential now, but that's the ship of Theseus thing. I'm saying, like, if you can replace all of your body parts, are you? Because now they're starting to do brain tissue engineering. And at first they started doing like the spinal nerves and like, okay, can we pass action potentials? But now they're starting to do brain matter, actual neurons. And there's crazy
organoids.
stuff
Is that what
like
you're talking about? Those like little tiny, the organoids, like the little
organoids.
tiny clumps of cells.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even before then, like 3 or 4 years ago when I was in grad school, they would make those iPSCs, turn them into neurons, and you could like shine a light and they would grow on a dishware plate towards the light. I mean, so then we get into like the whole Frankenstein question. Like, what's keeping someone once we've developed all of these? So if we can build organs to replace an entire human, it follows that you could just build organs to build an entire human.
Yeah.
There's a lot of like, yeah, I'm sure we can, but should we? Like,
right. I mean, it does sound like a I mean, this sounds like definitely a billionaire playboy's dream of like having a physical twin. Like we talk about the digital twin. What if you had a physical twin?
You just harvest his parts and you
like
need them?
a brain, almost like a brainless version of you that like, oh dang, I just had a kidney failure. Yoink. And then just
brainless,
grab that.
but is the entire nervous system not integral in everything that the body does to like come to maturity and like health and full functionality?
Fair point.
Yeah. I could see too, like this dystopian world where super rich, evil people, they just clone themselves a million times, and whatever organ fails, they just take it from the clone. Like in the
that's kind of weird saying, right? Like the physical twin concept.
So there's a movie where it's called The Island. I don't know if y'all have seen this. It's maybe 15 or 20 years old, and it's an island, and a bunch of people there. You could just kind of like wake up. I think maybe they implant some memories or something. Huge spoiler too, but it came out like 20 years ago. So I feel like
cook the whole audience.
I feel like that's free game, and or fair game, and every once in a while somebody would win the lottery to leave the island, and they would like bill it up like, yo, keep doing your job, keep working, whatever, you could win this lottery and get out of here. And they like promote it. It's something that everybody wants to do. And what ends up happening in the end is you realize that when you win the lottery, there's a version of you, an original version of you out there in the world that needs like your liver or something. Yeah. And winning the lottery is like your one way ticket out of there, because they kill you and then take whatever the organ was.
Yeah, that sucks. Dang.
I mean, that does suck.
That was the whole movie. That was the whole plot.
Yeah, that was the whole plot.
What were you saying, sir?
What? I didn't watch it, but did you guys watch the thing where there was like an inside outside person, Severance?
Yeah. That was crazy.
Was there a physical twin? Was that the premise?
No. So they were the same person. In Severance, it was the same person, but it was almost like a geotag, right? Like you could imagine if you walked into your house and as soon as you crossed the boundary entering into your home, you lost all memories of who you were outside of the house. And inside of the house, you have this new memory. You're almost like a newborn. And you're taught like, and incentivized based on completely new things. And then, maybe the version of you that works, you can be insulated from that, right? So it's like a value add to the person who wants to have great like work-life separation. But you can imagine the worker's experience is kind of like being both a newborn baby, kind of like an indentured servant, and then never
a slave. You only work.
Yeah,
your only conscious experience is working.
Your only conscious experience is working, and you don't experience any of the fruits of that labor because the version of you on the outside has those memories and experiences.
Yeah, so they're pissed, right? They get pissed about that eventually.
Eventually they get pissed. Eventually they figure out that this is some bullshit.
Yeah, a great show too, by the way. If you just enjoy like thought-provoking sci-fis, I think it's a pretty dope show for sure.
Agreed. I'm not a big Apple guy in general, but I do think Apple TV, they invest pretty heavily in their dystopian sci-fi.
Yeah, I've noticed this is like one of the main parts of your personality is not just being anti-Apple, but like speaking about it at length, ad nauseum in regular conversations.
Yeah, it's important.
Think that a lot of these shows are them admitting stuff that they've done
There you
are
go.
working
so?
on in R&D, but slightly exaggerated. I'm not gonna
Yeah,
lie.
Why would they
That
do
sounds
that,
like a fucking
though?
crazy conspiracy theorist, but like I'm serious.
Yeah, I
Why
think,
would they do that, though?
well, to desensitize us to the reality. Like if we have a show where, you know, we make this a thing, maybe it's a little dystopian, but like it's not the first time we've heard of it. So we're a little more tolerable of the potential dystopian outcome.
So
And it's
meaning that
almost like
what, though?
projection, right? Because they're like, oh, in this show, this evil corporation is doing it. The whole time it's them, but they've projected that into this
no, it's
fantasy
the
land.
big evil corp. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So y'all wouldn't sever yourselves?
No.
I haven't seen it, so I can't.
Oh, well,
tell you
I
that.
mean, you've worked before, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Okay, now imagine every time you do that, you just don't know about it, your free self. And then when you're working, you don't know about anything outside of that work experience.
Okay, I'm gonna say this, and I don't want to sound like a bootlicker because I'm not a bootlicker. Like I'm literally a communist. But
Commence bootlicking now.
I like my job. I personally enjoy my job. Is it stressful? Yes. Like, is it overwhelming a lot of times? Yes. But like I wouldn't even say enjoy, like woohoo, yippee, yay. But I find my job fulfilling. If I were to divorce that part of my life from my life, I would not feel as fulfilled as a person. So I would not do that. No.
Yeah, I actually feel the same way.
Yeah.
I love what I do. I think same for Justin. So I agree with you on that. It's, you know, the work, it's like a lot of work, and it's stressful, but it adds to my life, which is part of the reason why we go down those paths in general. And I also think that this is like very common in science. A lot of times people that aren't scientists maybe have this weird view of scientists that they're like getting paid big bucks to like do secretive stuff or whatever. And it's like, no, actually, scientists are actually usually not really paid that well. They do it because they just absolutely love it and it enriches their lives.
Yeah, that's so funny. I've seen like people making like skits and jokes about that. That's like, if I'm getting paid by Big Pharma, like, where is it? Where's the check?
Yeah, I've been accused of taking like big space money to lie to people about
space.
Yeah,
Space gate.
Big space. Like NASA's just got a direct line to my bank account, dumping money in there to tell people that the Earth is round.
Yeah.
What even is what? Okay, so a person who's accusing you of that, what's their angle? Like they're saying that you're saying that what, space is real?
Yeah, well, they think that space isn't real. They think that it's fake. They think that
projection.
But then where are we? Like the Earth, like where's the Earth?
Simulation.
And there, I'm asking you to be them and tell me, like I'm you.
I'm trying.
I'm trying to. Literally, like, so if there's no space, where are we?
We're on an infinite flat plane, just like the Bible says. There's a firmament over it, a glass dome, a firmament over it. I don't know what could be more. How could it be? How could I be more clear? We're on an infinite plane. Space is fake. It's either fake or it's water. All the images that you see are CGI. The government is trying to trick you. Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay, never mind. The CGI covers that. That's what happens when people go in space.
Yeah,
it's like CGI.
it's always CGI.
It's all fake.
Yeah, it's all CGI.
It's green screen.
It's all Unreal Engine, and you know, actually, this is another kind of related note. So I don't know if you all saw this in the SciComm Zeitgeist, but you know Emily Calandrelli, the space gal, she's got a pretty big platform. Yeah. Emily made a video, it's probably a month ago or so, about kind of this notion of like big pharma, right? Which I do think, you know, there's definitely a lot of money being thrown around there. I don't want to say that it's as conspiratorial as people are making it out to be, but she described the wellness industry as being far more sinister than big pharma, because people in the wellness industry is less regulated to the point that influencers can post ad nauseum in promotion of a product that doesn't actually do what it says, but like give their compelling anecdotal take on it and like sell a product.
Yeah,
they're not even really compelling usually.
Well, not to you, but like they sell the product.
Yeah.
No, and they do, and you're right, because it is so much more unregulated. A physician, a clinician has to disclose whether they're profiting from X, Y, and Z. A scientist certainly has to do a COI, a conflict of interest disclosure. You have to do that when you publish. You have to do that when you give a talk. You have to do that damn near when you open your eyes, you have to shout it over the rooftops. Like they don't allow you to just peddle things. And I think we talked about this before, like the stuff you see on there, it's like, this drains all your lymph. Okay, well, your lymph is associated with your blood. It's the site of immune surveillance for the entire body. If you drain all your lymph, you're going to die. Or they're like, oh, this gets these stem cell supplements. Like any stem cell supplement, you're probably going to pee it out. And you better hope and pray that you're going to pee it out, because otherwise what you're going to get is a tumor somewhere along your throat, esophagus, small intestines, large intestines, stomach, bladder, or urethra. That's what's going to happen. Unless it gets peed out somewhere along there, it's going to attach to the tissue somewhere along the route of you ingesting and excreting it and make a tumor. So like the science and this information is so bad. And another thing I think is interesting about like the big pharma, like I'm not pro big pharma. I'm not pro any corporation, and I'm certainly not pro the way healthcare works in the US. But I think people have a misconception about where science is suppressed. I think people are always like, oh, we've cured cancer a million times. They just don't want to make it blah, 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 because it's not profitable. Oh, they're not even trying to cure disease. Oh, they're not even trying to cure diabetes. When in fact, scientists are trying very, very, very hard. The bottleneck is not that we can't do it. I mean, we've cured mice cancer a million times. The bottleneck is the translation from mice to human. And the bottleneck that's really going to happen, where big pharma, big corporations, big health are actually going to fuck everyone, is not whether the technologies actually get developed. It's who's going to have access to those technologies when they come fully into fruition. You think a random person who works at Popeyes as a cashier, when they have a heart attack, is going to get a stem cell heart? No, it's not. Like the suppression is not about whether they allow scientists to develop the technologies. The suppression comes in when we start asking, now that we have developed these technologies, who is going to have access to them? There's homeless people dying on the streets because they can't get insulin. And you think that that's going to be equitable. So I think people have the right idea when they're like, corporations suppress scientific advancement being equitable to everyone. But I think people don't understand where that suppression actually happens, if that makes sense.
No, it makes total sense. I mean, in reality, I feel like what you described is kind of just that society, life is actually quite complicated. It's complex. And people struggle with complexity. Like notoriously as humans, we struggle with complexity. Even as scientists, the way that we try to describe things is in nice, neat little bins. And like nothing in nature really comes in these nice, neat little bins. These are like sort of arbitrary lines that we draw that help us explain and learn about things. But there's a lot of crazy complexities and relationships that are going on. And it's just easy to be like, oh no, this isn't what they want. You know, they're all out to get us, which is like sort of true in a capitalist system. It is true that the pharmaceutical companies want to make money. I mean, the way in the US, we spend more on healthcare than like anybody else does. And we have worse health than a lot of other places. So clearly there's some health inflation there. That's true. And I definitely can see how, you know, without taking too much of a nuanced approach, you're just like, all right, it's all a scam. They're all trying to screw us over and just get our money. And that is like a very simple and reductive way. And this is what I think we've talked about this before, but I'm not really a conspiracy theorist, but I believe that the complexity of life is such that the outcome of what people think is happening in a conspiracy oftentimes does happen, but not in like an evil boardroom making these choices kind of way. It's just like that's kind of what happens overall. Like what you were describing, Suh, that when this technology is possible and feasible, it's probably not going to be affordable for most people. And like, that's true. That's true. But that's like not a conspiracy. But it is going to be true that certain people will not have access to that.
I think you hit the nail on the head, because it'll be like the person is like, they're evil, they're killing us, and they're they just want our money. And I'm like, yes, but
They do
not
want the
in the
money.
way you think exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. So this is really interesting. What's your take on that? Like, would you like, how far do you think is too far in the recreation of organs to be used by people? Like, I assume that if you could like perfectly make just a heart without any other attachments involved, that like that would be fine. But like, say it is true that you do need a functioning brain. In fact, you need to replicate the brain that you have to produce a functional heart that is the same as yours. Like, would that be going too far? Making an interconnected system like that?
So there's three ways to answer that question. The first is as a scientist, where I say, yeah, I want to find out. Like, that's what a scientist is. Like, being a scientist is, ever since I was a little girl, I knew I wanted to know what the fuck was up. I wanted to know what was going on. I wanted to know what was possible. So if we could, in a vacuum, discover what was possible for us to do as scientists, yes, I would find that fascinating. That's like the first answer, right? But that's not reality. We don't live in that world. So then we have the question of, for me personally, would I personally do that? Would I want that for myself? My answer for that is no. And I've thought about that now that I'm being asked this question. I have an example that's sort of like a micro version of that, which is that, like, now that I'm in my 30s, every once in a while, I get a little Botox right here. But am I going to keep doing that for the rest of my life? No, I don't need to look like I'm in my 20s when I'm 70s. And frankly, that would look ridiculous and kind of scary. So what I've settled on that I'm actually going to do is keep getting Botox here and there, like the minimum amount, not a lot and not everywhere, just here, every once in a while, as I can afford it, throughout my 30s and 40s. Get one big facelift from a good plastic surgeon in my late 40s, and then let nature take its course. Because I just think that there is a dignity to nature taking its course. I personally do not want to live after I am supposed to die. Now, that's complicated by the fact that I have a girlfriend, and one day we'll get married and have kids. So then it becomes hard. Like, you want to stay around, you want to be around. But even then, still, I would not want to extend my lifespan beyond where it would end for reasonably natural causes. So now, obviously, if like I'm getting like vaccines and stuff, that's not reasonable. Like, dying of pneumonia at 25 is not reasonable. I'm talking about once I get 80, 90, 100, if I had a heart attack and my brain went, would I want them to build me a new one? I don't think so. And then the third way to answer your question is from this idea of, should everyone have a choice? And I think in a perfect world, that could be great. And we could say, yes, everyone has a choice. There's two problems with that. One is the equitability of who can actually access that under capitalism, which we discussed. The other is the ethical question of who is choosing. You have a lot of times where someone gets power of attorney because someone's old, they have dementia, they're not lucid, and they keep them alive against their will. You have a lot of times in a hospital where someone has a DNR and it gets violated. That's assault. That's illegal. Like, so it's like, who's deciding? Because if I'm on a feeding tube in a coma, I don't want someone else to decide for me that I'm getting a new brain and I'm going to wake up. I'm done. Like, I'm not, I've had my ride at life. So I think there's like a lot of ways to answer that, but I think we need to be cautious, certainly.
So I think this is really interesting. Like, your perspective of this specifically as a stem cell researcher is so fascinating to me, because I also think about what's reasonable in terms of health and medicine and lifespan becoming this like sliding scale throughout the course of humanity, right? Like, dying from pneumonia at 25 in 2025 seems unreasonable, but dying from pneumonia 100 years ago might have been a lot more likely and common and reasonable. By
All right. I
you
mean,
may
you
have
made it
had
out
a
of
good
childhood.
run.
Right.
Yeah.
And even this
25,
idea,
30 kids, you're like, Yeah,
Yeah,
like
right. And exactly. And even like the average lifespan of every individual just kind of raising as societies become more developed. And so then it kind of becomes like, well, as medicine improves and as health outcomes as a result of medicine improve, like is like 150-year lifespan mean like you're gonna just decline slowly to the extent that we can expect reasonably in 2025? Or does being 150 in the year 2300 actually not, is it actually kind of like being 25, you know? And
so
like,
what's
does that change your perspective on, whether or not you'd still want that?
I think certainly it does. There is a social lens to everything. Society, I'm like society, but no, society does dictate how we view everything. If I were like, I don't know, 15, 200 years ago, it'd be time to start cranking out some kids because I'm not going to live past 20. But like societally, now we understand that we can, and if we are healthy, will live to 70, 80, 90, 100. And what's interesting about that is there's a growing conversation. When I switched to my postdoc for immune engineering, one of the things I look at is immune aging. So without going too nitty gritty, there's a reason that older people get sick more often. Vaccines are less effective in the elderly. There's a reason that there's chronic low-grade inflammation in the elderly. And my research is really trying to figure that out from using like an engineering nanoparticle method, whatever. But like, so when I have to write these opening statements about why my work matters and please give me money for my project, one of the things I talk about is one of the greatest triumphs of science is extending the lifespan by 40 to 60 years over the past couple centuries. But we have failed to extend what a collaborator of ours, his name is Jenko Nikolic, he's at the Mayo Clinic. We have failed to extend what he calls health span, the number of healthy years within that extended lifespan. So like 65 plus, your susceptibility to disease goes up, your response to vaccine goes up, you have chronic low-grade inflammation, you have like just this constant, it's not really as healthy of a life on average in the population as before. And now by 2030, or actually I think it's 2050, we're going to have 1.6 billion people over 65. The proportion of older people in our society globally is getting bigger and bigger and bigger because people are just living longer. Is that great? Yeah, of course. But have we really thought through what that means for people's health? I don't think so.
Man, that's such an interesting topic. Yeah, and I mean, I think of just even like extrapolating this out into more of a lifestyle thing. Like I don't know if you all ever read 4 Hour Work Week, Tim Ferriss. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but he talks about this idea of mini retirements throughout the course of your life. Because like this notion that we have about retirement is that, you work for 40 years doing whatever while you're physically able. And then after you're around 65, you're able to now retire financially. And now you can go and do all these things. But a lot of times your quality of life is so much lower that you don't get to enjoy those experiences to the extent that you would if you dispersed mini retirements throughout your life in periods in between like career transitions or pivots or things like that. So I think it's an interesting way of kind of like getting around that before we've been able to, extend the health span. I think that's a really interesting term.
That is interesting. And it's sort of like that idea is prevalent in a lot of things. Like I remember when I was really young, I went to a year-round school where instead of having like all of the semester and then you're off, it was like 6 weeks on, 3 weeks off for the entire year. And that was nice because it was nice to have those breaks. I think that's not financially attainable for a lot of people, which is unfortunate. But I think it's certainly a way to maximize. It's like, yeah, let's say you reach the point you can financially travel all you want at 100, but you can't walk. So like, what is the value adding? Or let's say you can't walk and you can't see. So like you can't walk on the beach, you can't see the beach. Like what is the point? I think I like that. Like maybe we should be micro dosing retirement.
Well, if you can just get new organs, just swap them out. I know you said you didn't want to get your heart replaced when you turned 90 after a heart attack, but somebody who worked all their life to retire and be able to like travel and stuff, like maybe they do.
Like, yeah, you know what? I didn't even get what I wanted out of life yet. Like, I'm not done. So, like, let me go ahead and get this heart.
Maybe you can just retire that old body and get you a
No, but isn't that severance? But just on a longer scale, that person did all the work, and now you're the one who's gonna go play now that they're done working their entire life.
Yeah, I mean, I guess in real time though, you know, it's not like you have the amount of money to retire as you're working. So
Yeah.
it's still like you still would have to accumulate that. Yeah, that's really interesting. I guess another thing that popped into my head that must have emerged with this increased lifespan that we have is that like this concept of meaning and purpose is like blown up, because if you aren't living as long, then you know you don't have like you don't have like extra decades that you have to think about, like, oh, like what's important to me, like what is life about. And a part of me thinks that this is really like, a part of me thinks that it's a real thing that's really aligned with like your genes and your experiences and who you are. I like to think that. But a part of me also thinks that we're like here for kind of a long time. Our bodies are like not designed necessarily, or our minds maybe are not designed for like the society and the civilization that we find ourselves in. And you just you're kind of like lost because we're sort of like fish out of water. But we have this opportunity to like find things that we're curious about and find things that we're interested in.
Yeah, no, that's fascinating. Yeah, this is really fascinating. So a couple other things that I wanted to talk about. So just shifting gears a little bit. We spoke before about this open sourcing that you're doing with some intellectual property that you're working on. I'd love to hear more about that.
Oh yeah, so we have a publication. So when I was talking about like, oh, we're doing the stem cells and the heart cells, and then we're shocking them with electricity. So we invented, and I don't want to say we because that's overstating it. My colleague who recently finished his PhD in electrical engineering, he did most of the legwork of designing and fabricating the actual device, and then I sort of used it. But we collaborated on this whole thing. So he built this. It's like carbon electrodes, and then there's like a printed circuit board that controls these elements and blah, blah, blah. So we're publishing it, but we're open sourcing it, partially because that's what this journal wants, but partially because that's something he and I discussed wanting to do very early on. Just as a pushback of like this very proprietary nature that there is in a lot of biotech spaces. And just because for me, like I genuinely believe that we all benefit from collaboration. Like I think that too is why I've always tended to go to larger state schools. They tend to be less competitive and more collaborative than private institutions or Ivies. Like I think we all benefit from collaboration. And I think that like, not to sound like a grifter podcaster, but like this idea of like scarcity mindset, I think it's like really gotten its claws in the scientific community. And I think it's had that for like decades, perhaps centuries, this idea that if other people know what I'm doing, that devalues it. When in fact, if you really look at the entire, if you take a step back from like the predatory publishing and like the publication arms race and publisher perish and this idea that your worth is your H index, if you take a step back from all of that and you really look at what scientific publication was meant to do at its inception, it is meant to disseminate your findings. Like you're not supposed to, it's not like for bragging, it's for disseminating your findings so that other people can replicate what you've done, which is why rigor and reproducibility is so huge in science and why they drill it into you. It is for others to replicate what you have done and take it one step further. And as you said earlier, like the point of science is incremental scientific advancements built upon each other. And I think by being overly proprietary about our discoveries, we are really robbing each other of that ability. And I think the net result is that we're not getting a lot of discoveries around cancer and disease and aging that we could otherwise be getting, because people are like in a corner, like, don't look at me. When in reality, that is the whole point of publishing and the whole point of science. It's supposed to be collaborative.
Well, when it comes to
Nobel winners in medicine, that one person won it is like not that many. It's always groups, teams, sometimes spanning decades.
Well, so this has been a riveting, fascinating conversation.
What time is it?
We're an hour and 5 minutes in. This has been amazing cooking with you here. So we are going to start wrapping things up in a little bit, but we wanted to know if there's anything else you wanted to share with the Curiosity Theory audience, or any parts of your research, any inspiring takeaways, things of that sort.
I think as a takeaway, just to people who are interested in science and feel that their path is like it wasn't set out for them to do that, I think you would be surprised how it feels to come back to science afterwards. Like, I didn't do very good, and can't even talk right now. I didn't do very well in my bachelor's, but and I ended up having to work like in restaurants for a while after, but it never left my mind that I wanted to be a scientist, because that's what I wanted to be since I was a kid. And it came to a point that I thought I just basically could not live the rest of my life wondering if I even had a shot and assuming that I didn't, which a lot happened between then and now. But ultimately, to be where I am now in my chosen career after it felt so impossible for me, I guess I just would like to impart to people who've wanted to do science and feel like their life took them in a different direction, even though it can be difficult financially, emotionally, and mentally. I cannot imagine what sort of mental space I would be in if I hadn't taken that leap. And to this day, 15 years later, was wondering if I really had it in me to do a PhD. I think that's kind of what I would like to say, because clearly, like, your audience is interested in science, and it may be people that have what they consider a hobby-like interest in science, but I've always wondered if it could be a career for them. And I would say to them that it certainly can be, and just don't sell yourself short.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That totally resonates with me as well. I went through like a similar period before I started the path to do what I do. And I always remember thinking, you know, at the end of my life, am I gonna like look back and worry about like the 5 or 10 years that I went back to school, or am I gonna hope that I tried to do everything that I really wanted to do, everything that I was passionate about? And yeah, I'm glad that you said that. You don't have to be like this 1 in a trillion Einstein, you know, Big Bang Theory-esque caricature to do science. You just need to be really passionate, really curious, and I think most people have the capacity to do high level research if they just apply themselves. So I totally love what you said.
The question we have for you, Suh, is what is one question that you wish you would have asked yourself sooner?
Wow, that is really good.
Yes.
I think, and especially being like a queer woman, a lesbian, this really ties into what I'm about to say, because I think this is a very common thing you hear from queer people. I wish I'd asked myself earlier in life what it was I wanted out of life. I think for a lot of women, like, and I think this generation, Gen Z and Gen Alpha, brain rotted as the Gen Alpha is, I think they've done a really great job at pushing back at like sexist, traditional gender roles. But I, being born and raised in the 90s, was like, it was very much still like women should want a husband and kids. And if I had asked myself earlier what I wanted out of life, I would have realized way earlier that that wasn't it. And I think it would have taken so much pressure off of me, not just in that sense, but also like, I think about like earlier in my career, like you could say, if I had asked I assumed I wanted the same thing as everyone else in my field, right? Which is to have a first author paper in Nature and to win a Nobel. Now I know, you could call BS if you want, but I'm so dead serious. It would mean more to me at this point in my life if my mentee's mentee won a Nobel than if I did. Like, what I actually care about is nurturing underrepresented people, women especially, in science. What I actually care about is making small incremental contributions to science that are rigorous and reproducible and real. And that means more to me than these big, like, aha moments. And it would mean more to me if I made a impression beyond myself, and that someone who is my mentee after I'm dead won a Nobel than if I won one still living. And I think people think like, oh no, that's bullshit. But I really mean that. And that is something that's so inconceivable to a lot of people because it's not what they want. But I would have known that and structured my life a lot differently and invested in a lot of different things had I known earlier in my career as a scientist what I want. And so I think that's a question I wish I had asked myself earlier in my personal life and my professional life. What do you want your life to look like? What do you want to achieve? Like, when you are on your deathbed, what is it that you are going to be
Over
proud of?
there.
What?
Your phone over there blowing up.
Oh,
Suh line, yeah, Suh line's going crazy over there. Won't be able to edit that one out. But that was a great quote, Suh. We certainly
Yeah.
appreciate that.
Yeah.
Another question for you. Last question. Where can people find more information about you?
My Instagram is Suh the Scholar, just the first half of my name, the Scholar. That's actually not like about my work. That's like a rap moniker I had from way back when I did like freestyling and battle rapping and stuff. But yes, SUHTHESCHOLAR. And then there's a link on there that has a link to all my other stuff. I have a poetry book. I have some videos of my research. I have a list of my publications. And also, if anyone hears of assistant professor, tenure track positions in biomedical engineering, mechanical engineering, material science, or things in that era, I'm starting to throw my hat in the ring for professor positions. So, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah.
All right.
Thanks again, Suh. And also really loved your answer there for the question that you would want to ask yourself earlier. I have this belief that as humans, our one of our biggest struggles is like what the group wants, what society wants, that social pull, and then like what we actually want. And oftentimes, if you don't really think about it and ask yourself what that is, you just kind of assume the general standard of everybody else, and it can't possibly apply to each individual specifically. So yeah, I love that, thinking about getting in touch with yourself and what you really want and what matters to you, and then being like courageous and brave enough to trust that and to try and move behind that, even if other people don't approve or think that's what you should be doing. So love that answer, and thanks again. You also make really great content, so everybody definitely go follow Suh on IG and everywhere else. Thanks again for joining us. It's been amazing.
You heard it here, people. Boldly go forth. And as always, stay curious.
Peace.